Okay, so here's a quick little reminder. So this is how it all happened. A majority of people got introduced to Static through the iconic TV show on Kids WB. However, as most people know, Static Shock derives from the comic book Static that was produced by Milestone Media, which is kind of like an imprint on DC comic. I'm missing a lot, but that's because I want to get to the story of Icon. But you know, Static was hella popular, so that's why most of us just know him. However, within the Dakota verse, there's a whole bunch of heroes and villains. And the Milestone Media characters were created by these iconic black men. Because let's be real, there wasn't a lot of comics that represented that time and era in the 90s, of black people, I mean. So now we have Icon and his girl Rocket. And by girl, I mean just sidekick. It's kind of like the daughter he could never have. You know, the kid that keeps their parents like hip and urban despite their parents' pushback? So we're out in space. The year is 1839. And you see over here, this is Icon, this little alien dude. This is Icon in his true form. And as you can see, he's in distress. The nigga's ship is exploding. So he's like, bitch, I'm not gonna go down with the ship. So he ejects himself in this little life pod. And it sends him plummeting towards Earth. You see, kind of very Superman-esque, but better. So remember, it's the 1800s. So his ship crash lands in the American South. Lord have mercy. And the ship crashes in a plantation where this kind woman, a slave woman, is awoken. And I don't understand how nobody else was awoken, but you know, comic logic. She goes up to the spacecraft, and I'm not that curious. Like, I would have been looking from afar because I'm nosy, but I'm not curious enough to go up to it and touch it. However, due to Icon being an alien form, when he looks out and he sees the slave woman, their technology and him being so advanced ahead of Earth, so he'll blend in, he takes the form of the closest sentient being, and that's a black woman. So with him being a male though, so he becomes a black baby to blend in. And this beautiful woman adopts him and takes him. And on some real shit, I can only imagine knowing how, you know, spiritual, enslaved black people were. They probably thought this was like a god, a miracle coming down from the heaven. Because you know, black people are very magical and spiritual. But yeah, so now he's in the baby form and she takes him to raise. And then we fast forward to present day 1993. That's a year before I was born, fun fact. Now we're in downtown Dakota. Because remember, he's an alien. His aging process is totally different from us mortal. He works in the downtown district. He's a powerful attorney. So while his name is Augustus now, he's having memories of the past. Suddenly snapping him out of his daydream is his co-worker, Saul, who's like, nigga, we got a big caseload. I mean, he didn't say nigga because he's white, but you know what I mean. But his friend Saul is like, you've been daydreaming lately. What are you daydreaming or thinking about? And he tells his co-worker he met a girl who's really impoverished, yet angry, yet passionate about what she believes. And black like he is, she sees the world very differently. Part 2 down below. So yeah, so pretty much Augustus is telling his colleague that he met a girl that really imprinted on him. You know, she's young, she's passionate, she's angry, yet they see Black matters from two different perspectives, or spectrums per se, which really has him thinking. And so his coworker Saul is like, well, tell me more about it. And this really has Augustus, aka Icon, because Augustus is his civilian name. This girl that he met makes him want to help others that may not be in his line of sight, like, you know, wealthy. And you see his coworker up, he's like, we're lawyers, we help people every day when we're not screwing them over. Emphasis on screwing them over. And Augustus is like, maybe there's something more I can do. And then we switch over to the projects to meet Rocket. And Rocket's real name is Raquel. And she's pretty much talking about how she always wanted to be a writer like Toni Morrison, who is her idol, but she never had nothing to write about. And she's like, nothing really interesting has ever happened to me before this. And this is where we go into the backstory of how she met Augustus up here. So it was a couple nights ago, and her and 3 other friends, they're casing houses. So pretty much like the wet bandits from Home Alone. Because all throughout the town, the rumor of the Big Bang that is gonna happen has all the police's attention. So since the police attention are down at the docks, and if you know the Big Bang, you know if you've watched that, nobody's really patrolling or watching the big houses in the suburb. So her and her friends are like, this is an easy lick, because she needs to get some money because she wants to get a typewriter. Remember, it's the 90s, a typewriter, computer, whatever. So they think they getting away cold. Her and her friends are like, all the cops are preoccupied with the gang wars down on the dock. And those gang wars, like I said earlier, end up becoming the Big Bang, where the bang babies are born. So these niggas are like, we about to start steal. So they go up to this mansion, this gated community, and they come upon a man. But Raquel really doesn't want to do it. However, you know how that peer pressure shit is. But one of her friends is like, if we score enough money from here, we can buy you a typewriter. And I'm sure Toni Morrison has a typewriter. So these niggas break in to this mansion, and they, you know, they don't give a fuck because they think it's just some rich white people who got insurance. They can replace it. But Raquel's morality is still getting the best of her. She's like, I don't know if I should do this. She ain't the type of bitch that wants something just because a whole bunch of other people have it. However, when she goes to the study, she sees a computer computer, which is leagues ahead of a typewriter. So she goes to take it. But suddenly she is shocked when she sees the owner. However, the owner is Augustus, the lawyer, aka attorney. I don't know if a lawyer or an attorney is the same thing, but let's just go with it. The homeowner is home and he's a black man. And he's coming down there because he heard noise. Raquel's friends draw a gun on him. And they assume that he's the butler, as if black people can't have nice shit. And Raquel is like, this shit is getting too real. It's kind of like that Juice moment where Bishop shoots the store clerk. And he's like, nigga, I am not the butler. This is my shit. Put my shit down. And the guy with the gun, and Raquel's like, yeah, put the gun down. This is going too far. And the nigga with the gun is like, it's always you bougie motherfuckers that got the mo. And Augustus is like, nigga, you a thief and you trying to cuss me out of my own house about my accomplishment? He's like, I ain't gonna have that type of language in my own house. And he lunges at him. And Raquel's friend shoots him directly in the chest and he falls with a hole in his chest. He go all trigger happy. And he shoots Augustus dead. Dead, I say in quotation. But then like Lazarus, this nigga rises from the dead. And you see the nigga with the gun, he's like, what the fuck did we walk into? Which is a good example of why you shouldn't rob nobody's shit. In real life, comic book, TV, I don't care. Never rob or try to invade someone's home because you never know what your ass is gonna walk into. And Augustus is like, nigga, this shit has gone far enough. And the other robbers is like, bitch, we running. I just scratched the fuck out of my... And see, the other robbers are smart. They're like, bitch, we out of here. But then the nigga that's trigger happy, he's like, oh, hell no. And he's like, bow bow. As soon as I said bow bow, I instantly regretted it. And he points the gun at Augustus at point blank range and blasts, but Augustus just grabs that bitch. Meanwhile, Augustus crushes the gun before this nigga's eye. And he's like, bitch, you stay here, because now I gotta go after your bitch ass friend. And see, his friends is like, they trying to get away. They like, bitch, we done seen and saw enough. But you see, look at Augustus. Look how powerful he looks running after him in his green robe that seems like it's almost alive. And see, as Raquel's running, remember, there's many Toni Morrison references. She remembers the book, The Song of Solomon, that deals with, you know, flying African American. And also, a little side note, there's the legend and the myth of the flying Africans back on the plantation. And the myth of the flying Africans go back far, where there is literally interviews from other slaves that are documented where they've said they've seen Africans on the plantations fly back to Africa. Now, what you believe in, that's on you. Do I believe that Africans float back in the day? Yeah, because I'm a bitch that believes a lot of shit existed back in the day that doesn't no longer exist now. But the whole legend of the flying Africans is really deep. Y'all should go look at it. But you know, like in Toni Morrison's book, The Song of Solomon, flying among black people meant a type of freedom, a liberation from the earthly shackles. So for Raquel, who's a Toni Morrison fan and the smartest out of these group of robbers, seeing a black man, a successful black man fly, there's many layers to the metaphor of a black man that's defying gravity. He's on his alphabet shit, pretty much. And see, all these niggas, they thought they was finna get away. And as Raquel was just jumping over the big ass fence, before she could land, he's like, swoop! And he's flying all them hoes back into his mansion. Cause he's like, now y'all got the answer to me. And maybe people don't look at shit as deep as me, but look how powerful this is. He is a flying black man who is powerful. In his career, his real life, and supernaturally, he has a bullet hole though in his chest, and he still defies the odds. So Augustus drops down the last thief, and now Judgment Day is fucking here, hoes. So now Augustus then rounded up all of these hooligans. Is hooligan a bad word? If it is, please excuse me for saying. So he drops them down. He's telling them, I have little patience for criminals. Look at my line of work. And he's like, I gotta round you guys up because after I came back to life, after y'all shot me, I prefer to have the details of this encounter on the low. Because despite what happened, he's still a guy that came back to life before them, even though they were stealing from him. And he's like, I would prefer you guys to act like common citizens instead of common thugs. If you want something, pay for it. If you can't pay for it, get a job to work for it. And Augustus says to them, your behavior reflects poorly on us as people. And by people, he means black people. But you gotta remember, not all skin folk are kinfolk. And then here comes trigger happy dude over there. He's like, okay, so you got a bulletproof vest. He's like, I'll shoot you in the face then. Did you not learn? This is a prime example, ladies and gentlemen, of somebody who never learns from their mistakes. And Augustus looked him dead in the eye. He was like, I sincerely hope what you about to pull out your jacket pocket is some chalk. Because I promise you, I'm gonna make you eat it. So pretty much, if it's a gun, I'm gonna make you eat your bullets. And he's pretty much like, believe me, I'll know. I want y'all to all to return everything you stole, or you will see me again. He's like, I'm not asking, I'm telling you. Pretty much, if fuck around and find out was a person, that's him. And see, I don't know about the other guys, but I know Raquel here, she believed him. He put the fear of God in her. But also, not only the fear of God, he intrigued her. she was fascinated by him. And despite how scary it was, you only get one chance to make a first impression, and he definitely made an impression on that young woman. And after that night, the world that she lived in seemed forever changed. The world she existed in kind of seemed small when you realize there are so many people outside of your spectrum and so many vastly different people. Hell, that's true in real life. A lot of us only live within the concepts of our own mind or our day-to-day, our 9 to 5, and we don't really explore outside of our range or our comfort zone. And that made Raquel think deeper about what her life and what her legacy and what her future's gonna be. And according to her, she didn't want the same crappy life as her mom. And she kept on thinking about the possibility of flight. And Raquel, she's like an artist. She likes to draw too. And the idea, inspiration struck and it came to her. Now back at Augustus' home a couple days later, he has a visitor and it's Raquel. And she tells him she's been thinking about him ever since they had that run-in. And she tells him how his power and stuff like that, how they can both team up and help the community. Since she's seen a new perspective, she wants to open him up to her perspective of, like the down and out. They should team up for the people and become Icon and Rocket. So Raquel shows him her mock-up of who they could be together. And he's like, what is Icon? She's like, it's an example or an idea of what you can be for the community. She's like, pretty much you could be a symbol, something that stands for something. Because when you don't stand for something, you fall for everything. Bitch, I wanted to say that so fucking bad. But he turns around, he asks her, he's like, well, what do you stand for? And she's like, well, all I'm saying is you should be a hero and set an example like you did for me and my friends. And he was like, well, I know what I can do because I got the power. I got the magic. But what would you be doing, Rocket? And she's like, I'm there to keep you in check so you know and remember what you're doing it for. Setting people straight like you did me. And then his cynical ass, he's like, people don't need examples, y'all. If you aren't doing well, you haven't tried hard enough. Which is a very closed-minded ideology. He said, if you want a better life, pretty much don't look for an example. Do what I did and pull your own self up by your bootstrings. And Raquel's like, it's real easy to say pull yourself up by your bootstraps when you're already across the finish line. Which is like yes and no, because it's easy to judge somebody after they've already had their win when you wasn't there for the come up. But Raquel leaves him. She was like, okay, well, you hear my idea. I'll let you be now. And she goes home because she assumes like, with strict old school dudes like him, they're like, I'll never hear from him again. But then 2 days later, guess who was outside of her window flying? And he drops off her a gift, which is a suit that'll protect her from any harm once she learns how to use it properly. And after he gave her the costume, he told her, meet me at the bridge in 3 weeks. And let me tell you, Raquel, girl, she trying to act all cool, but the girl was sneaking and geeking. She was too excited because now her life is becoming interesting and she'll really have some real shit to write about. So that night, Augustus goes to the hood. He goes to the hood, nigga sticking out like a sore thumb. He looked like a social worker. But Raquel's words of helping people who can't help themselves really rings true to him. It reminds him of his wife that he had a couple lifetimes ago. And how it's important whenever you get power, whether it's a little bit of power or a big amount of power, to always empower somebody behind you. And it's making him have conflict with himself because he always pretended as those who are beneath him or suffer have brought it upon himself, which shows you how far removed he is since we first met him back on the plantation and probably what he was raised through for him to get where he's at now. It's kind of like you really forgot where you came from. Like, nigga, you was shucking and jiving on the field. But he realized even though these people are poor, they're still making the best out of their situation. A lot of them live without hope. Meanwhile, he's been living a lie. So what's worse? And he finally arrives at the bridge. Augustus realized he has to pretty much become Icon because there's a sense of hopelessness in Dakota. Ever since the riots happened, and if y'all watch Static Shock or read the comic Static, y'all know the riots are Big Bang. He's like, I need to be an example for these kids. Because the kids are not all right, especially in Dakota in this time. And what I love about this is those of us who were introduced to Milestone through Static, we know Static is somewhere around in this universe, dealing with the after effects of the Big Bang right now. So you OG Static fans know the events of what's going on in Static is kind of happening simultaneously with his story. And then Rocket said this deep-ass quote, quoting W.E.B. Du Bois. However, since it's cut off, I can't see it and I don't want to paraphrase it. But just know it was like some deep shit talking about, standing up for the people. And Icon said, oh, W.E.B. Du Bois, he's like, I'm more of a Booker T. Washington type of guy myself. which should tell you a lot. And I say that because some people looked at Booker T. Washington as a sellout, but I'm not getting into that. This ain't no history lesson here. Well, at least not today, at least. So then, Icon sees a Rocket in her outfit, and he's like, I don't know if your outfit is decent enough, because, you know, he's a modest, conservative man. However, she's like, bitch, I heard there's some drama going down downtown Dakota. All the police are there. Our help is needed. We don't got time for the morality police, especially about a costume. We're here to save the day. He grabs her hand, he changes, and they are off to save the day, or so they think. And Rocket's freaking out because this is the first time she ever really flew. And he's like, honey, if you're uncertain, I can always drop you off. So as they're flying and they're getting to downtown to the mayor's office, they see the police, everything is barricaded. And Rocket's telling them like, hey, fall back. Let's watch and then proceed before we act. But Icon's like, oh no, let's just go down there and ask the police if they need help. And it's like, nigga, you're a black man in a mask who's more powerful than everybody down there. You could have a halo, wing, and a rainbow on your chest, and they would still see you as a threat. And Rocket's like, this is not a good idea. I'm the sidekick. I'm supposed to be the naive one. Because Rocket's like, you think the cops are waiting for a flying black man to come out of the sky to save the day? I think not. And he's like, you have to show respect for authority. And it's like, let's see how they respect you. He flies down, he's on some good evening, officer. And the officer's like, what the hell are you supposed to be? And he's like, I'm Icon. I'm here to help. On some real like Carlton Banks type shit. And the police officer's like, is that so? And he's like, well, you can help me by putting your hands above your head where I can see them pronto. And Rocket's like, don't assume that everything is racial, right? And next thing you know, weapons are drawn, you hear the click clack, and Rocket's like, I bet you this shit never happens to Superman. And honey, I bet you're right. And now they are surrounded by cops with their weapons drawn, ready to destroy. And that is the end of issue 1 of Icon Comic.